Are you ready for a powerhouse story? Join us as we follow Jasmine Crockett, the fearless woman who dared to challenge injustice and prejudice. In her battle against a biased system, Jasmine's unyielding courage and steadfast determination redefine what it means to speak the truth. If you want to witness the explosive clash of power and principle, subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss a beat. Jasmine Crockett realized that this was far more than any ordinary legal battle. She was stepping onto a battlefield where the stakes couldn't be higher. At 37, a conservative woman of color, Jasmine had never been afraid to speak her mind, even if her opinions clashed with the mainstream. Yet it was precisely this trait that made her a target of a $10 million defamation lawsuit filed by Whoopi Goldberg, a high-profile celebrity who claimed that Jasmine's words during a public press briefing had tarnished the reputation of a well-known talk show by criticizing taxpayer-funded support for extreme viewpoints. The size of the lawsuit alone, $10 million, made it clear that Whoopi and her legal team were not just out to correct a perceived wrong. They intended to break Jasmine. But for Jasmine, the true danger lay not in the price tag but in what the suit represented, a direct assault on her core principles and her very identity. She wasn't being sued simply for what she had said. She was being attacked because she dared to question a popular narrative that few others would challenge. As she flipped through the thick stack of legal documents that arrived in a glossy envelope, Jasmine understood this was a move designed to chill her freedom of speech, to force her into silence or compliance. The more she read, the more transparent the lawsuit's aim became. It had less to do with defamation in the legal sense, and more to do with shutting her down before her voice could grow louder. After all, how many people could realistically fight a celebrity's legal dream team? But Jasmine Crockett was not one to be rattled by intimidation tactics. She had spent much of her life pushing back against systems that tried to box her in, whether political machines or media narratives that discredited her perspective. The lawsuit might have been meant to scare her, but it only fueled her resolve. She recognized that if she caved now, she would be allowing powerful figures to define the boundaries of public discourse, punishing anyone who stepped outside the lines. Late nights found Jasmine poring over case law, researching defamation precedents, and strategizing about how to turn the public narrative in her favor. She was fully aware that, for her, this wasn't merely a question of money or reputation. It was about safeguarding the right to speak one's truth without being crushed under legal and societal pressures. Standing in front of her dresser mirror, she would remind herself of what was at stake: her ideals, her credibility, and, ultimately, the principle of free speech itself. By the time she headed to court for the first hearing, Jasmine had already decided she would not go quietly. If Whoopi Goldberg and her high-powered attorneys expected a trembling defendant, they were in for a shock. Jasmine had stepped into the spotlight ready for war, determined to prove that her voice mattered more than celebrity influence or the weight of a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. Stepping into the courtroom for the first hearing, Jasmine Crockett immediately sensed a hostile atmosphere. The person presiding over her case was Judge Victor Shaw, infamous for his dismissive attitude toward those he considered beneath him. One look in his eyes told Jasmine that he had already judged her before she ever opened her mouth. It was more than a feeling, as every gesture conveyed a blatant indifference to her arguments, as if her presence inconvenienced him. From the moment proceedings began, he spoke to her in a patronizing tone, questioning her qualifications and hinting that she had no place in this court. When Jasmine presented her first major piece of evidence, an official briefing transcript she believed would dismantle Whoopi Goldberg's defamation claim, Judge Shaw's reaction was as swift as it was chilling. He barely glanced at the document, then slammed his gavel and declared it irrelevant, fining Jasmine $1,000 on the spot. Gasps rippled through the courtroom, but she refused to let shock overwhelm her. In that moment, she understood that this trial wasn't about fair play. It was about raw power, wielded by a judge who relished the chance to humiliate someone he perceived as a political or ideological adversary. Even as Judge Shaw shot her condescending glances, Jasmine forced herself to remain composed. She knew enough about him to realize that any outward sign of distress or frustration would only feed his narrative, that she wasn't capable of defending herself. Though anger coursed through her veins, she silently reminded herself of the principles at stake: the right to question a popular narrative, the need to expose bias, and the conviction that every person deserved a fair hearing. She might have been up against a system seemingly aligned against her, but Jasmine had never been one to back down, especially not when her own voice was on trial. Despite Judge Victor Shaw's constant attempts to undermine her credibility, Jasmine Crockett refused to crumble. From the outset, the hostility was palpable, with Shaw questioning her grasp of the law and almost openly ridiculing her stance as a conservative woman of color. Each time Jasmine tried to speak or present emotion, he dismissed her arguments as if they were trivialities unworthy of serious consideration. Yet Jasmine wasn't just defending herself, she was defending her fundamental right to be heard in a court that seemed determined to silence her. Whenever Shaw mocked her academic background or tried to shut down her evidence, she responded by citing established legal precedents cases that outlined exactly why her exhibits were not only relevant but crucial to the defense. At times, the tension felt suffocating. Observers shifted uncomfortably in their seats as they realized the judge's behavior was edging from antagonistic into blatantly unfair. Still, Jasmine's composure never wavered. She chose her words carefully, never raising her voice, but letting the precision of her arguments slice through Shaw's attempts to demean her. Though her heart pounded with the stress of battling a judge who wanted her to fail, Jasmine drew on every ounce of her training and her convictions. She understood that backing down now would validate the very power dynamic she sought to expose. And so, each time Judge Shaw glared at her, she met his gaze calmly, showing him that while he might hold the gavel, he would not control her narrative. One day, after Judge Shaw had done all he could to humiliate her, Jasmine Crockett made her boldest move yet. She had discovered a secret weapon, a recording that would lay bare the judge's prejudices. The courtroom fell silent as she played the audio of Shaw's own voice, dripping with scorn for her age, her gender, and her right to stand in his courtroom. "Are you here with a lawyer's confidence?" he sneered, "or just a little girl playing dress-up?" The entire room froze, stunned by the unfiltered contempt in his words. Shaw's complexion paled as he realized his bias was no longer hidden. In that moment, Jasmine had shifted the power dynamic. This wasn't about her defense alone, it was about exposing a system built on arrogance and favoritism. She stood unwavering while the courtroom practically shook. She wasn't just seeking justice, she was delivering it. Now that Judge Shaw's blatant prejudice had been revealed, Jasmine Crockett refused to let him wriggle free. Where once she had been dismissed and penalized for presenting her case, she now wielded facts like a sword. Calmly, she submitted the White House briefing transcript again, proving her statements were aimed at policy, not personal attacks. Shaw, desperate to reclaim authority, tried once more to discount her evidence, but Jasmine held firm. She cited New York Times v. Sullivan, the gold standard in defamation cases involving public figures, exposing the plaintiff's flimsy arguments for what they were: emotional, sensational claims lacking legal grounds. The energy in the courtroom sizzled as she dissected Holly Golder's case piece by piece, revealing it as an attempt at public spectacle rather than a solid legal claim. Jasmine didn't merely refute the lawsuit, she dismantled it, establishing her rightful place in the legal arena. Judge Shaw's usual smugness began to crumble under Jasmine Crockett's unrelenting onslaught. Though he tried to maintain an air of authority, it was clear he had no valid counter-arguments. The tension in the courtroom built as he grasped for an exit but found none. Each time he attempted a rebuttal, Jasmine remained composed, delivering blow after blow backed by established facts and precedents. Observers watched in stunned silence while Shaw's confidence melted into something resembling pleading desperation. No longer could he hide behind his robe or gavel. Jasmine's determined presence had torn away his veneer of impartiality. In a matter of hours, she exposed not just Shaw's biases but the system's willingness to protect its own. By now, it was evident he could do nothing but yield. The match had turned in Jasmine's favor, and even the most skeptical onlookers could see it. The dynamic shifted completely when Judge Andrea Miller entered the scene, bringing a sense of fairness the courtroom desperately needed. Where Shaw had ruled with arrogance, Judge Miller carried a quiet authority, instantly resetting the atmosphere. Her presence was calm, measured, and she needed no dramatic gestures to gain respect. Having reviewed the evidence, Miller declared that Jasmine's original statements were based on policy critique, not personal defamation. The shaky foundation of the lawsuit, fueled more by media hype than credible evidence, collapsed under the weight of constitutional arguments. Dismissing the case with prejudice, Miller effectively restored justice to a courtroom that had been steeped in chaos. For Jasmine, it was more than just relief, it was validation. Though she had wrestled with a broken system, the law still had the potential to be fair in the right hands. Jasmine Crockett's victory turned into a defining moment, both personally and nationally. Her refusal to be crushed by a celebrity-backed lawsuit, a biased judge, and relentless media scrutiny became a rallying cry for those who felt marginalized by the justice system. She hadn't just won in court, she'd proven that methodical preparation, unwavering resolve, and faith in the law could triumph over pomp and prejudice. Yet her fight wasn't simply about one case, it was about revealing the system's flaws and demanding they be addressed. Her success sparked conversations about judicial transparency and reform, with states across the country taking note of her example. Courts started re-examining internal procedures, while activists championed new initiatives to ensure no one else would endure what Jasmine had faced. Though the media tried to play up her celebrity status, Jasmine kept her focus squarely on making meaningful change. She had challenged a broken system and emerged victorious, reminding everyone that justice, while fragile, can indeed be defended by those bold enough to stand their ground. Reflecting on Jasmine Crockett's journey, we see a struggle against prejudice, facing enormous financial and media pressures, and above all, a fight to secure the freedom of speech and the respect owed to an individual within a deeply challenging judicial system. This story leaves a lasting impression about determination and steadfastness, illustrating how one person can rise above the forces of power and deception by wielding intelligence and an unwavering belief in what is right. Perhaps the most profound value this narrative imparts is the power of a single voice that dares to speak the truth and demand justice. Even when surrounded by the intimidating might of a celebrity-backed lawsuit, skewed courtroom procedures, and relentless social pressure designed to silence dissent, Jasmine Crockett refused to be cowed. She stood firm, knowing that silence only equates to defeat, and that one who boldly demands fairness can indeed turn the tide, even when the odds initially appear insurmountable. This story also rings as a bell for how an individual can be unjustly judged when courts or any institution operate under bias or wield power without transparency. It raises the crucial question: are we simply compromising with an opaque system, or are we ready to step up and fight, fully aware that the struggle will be fraught with obstacles? More often than not, it only takes one decision, one brave person, to spark a chain reaction that exposes the hidden injustices within our society. On a personal note, I believe that Jasmine's story is not only a lesson in resilience, but also a powerful call for all of us to speak up against injustice whenever we encounter it. A courtroom cannot suppress the truth indefinitely. A person who dares to fight back deserves recognition, and the community will not turn its back when righteousness shines through. Her journey reminds me that sometimes it is not just about voicing the truth, it is also about steadfastly defending it until the end. Finally, I invite you, those who have followed this story, to share your thoughts. Do you agree that individual determination can overturn what appears to be an impossible confrontation? What do you think this story says about our current judicial system and freedom of speech? And in your view, what can each of us, as ordinary citizens, do to empower other Jasmine Crocketts in real life? Your insights and open dialogue are the keys to driving the change needed for a fairer future. Disclaimer: the character Jasmine Crockett is a real person. She is a lawyer, former prosecutor, and currently a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. However, the entire story presented in this video is a work of fiction, created for the purpose of inspiration and to reflect urgent social issues such as abuse of power, injustice, and racial discrimination. We do not intend to portray real events or attribute specific actions to any individual or organization. This is a creative work, symbolic, thought-provoking, and focused on social commentary rather than historical accuracy. Viewers are encouraged to engage with this content critically, with awareness, and to reflect on the deeper message it aims to convey.